Civil War reenacting. I did that. And when I retired from Chesterfield County Police Department, I haven't retired from reserves at the same time too. So I finally had some time to do it. Well, one thing that I have learned about people who visit Petersburg National Battlefield is that they want to talk about the Battle of Petersburg. It wasn't any Battle of Petersburg. We had 9 major offensives down there and 108 battles that you can really call a fight, and then a whole lot of others that people got killed in, shot at, got hurt, maneuvered around, and never really got a name, or never got famous. But most people, they come to Petersburg and want to know about the Battle of the Crater. And I've gotten to the point where I was sick and tired of talking about the Battle of the Crater. The thing was, to me, it was a sideshow. I mean, if it had worked, so you'd have been over with. If they done what they're supposed to do, when April Union troops hit on June 9th, 1864, there wouldn't have been a siege of Petersburg. But there was one. And it lasted 9.5 months, 292 days, had 9 major offensives and 108 battles. Now there would have been a 10th offensive had there been anybody in Petersburg on the 3rd day of April to attack. But all the different battles that took place up to that point really prepared Lee to leave Petersburg if necessary. And there's some historians and other park rangers that don't agree with me, but we were talking one day about when did Lee finally decide that he might have to evacuate Petersburg. Now there's been a really good book written about the retreat from Gettysburg. And one of the things I noticed in it was that Ewell's Corps, when it retreated from Gettysburg, had a wagon train that was 40 miles long. And that's only one course. So when it comes to retreating or withdrawing, it's not something you do on a spur of the moment. Well, we were talking about this, and so the question was asked, when did Lee first recognize or make any plans to evacuate Petersburg? And somebody said, oh, February of 1865. I said, no, in September of 1864. Oh, no, he didn't do it that early. I said, oh, yes, he did. And that's something that we'll talk about tonight. Because Richard Summers, who wrote Richmond Redeemed, excellent book, about that thick, on basically the Battle of Peebles Farm and Chaffin's Bluff and New Market Heights over in Henrico County. Because when you look at the siege of Petersburg, you can't think of just the siege of Petersburg. It's really the Richmond-Petersburg siege. Because the U.S. Grant was a different kind of general. He looked at Lee and he said, I need to keep Lee in a decision-making mode. So if you look at every one of the offensives, every time Grant did something on the north side of the river, he did something on the south side of the river. Almost simultaneously. Same with Deep Bottom, just before the crater. Because he wanted Lee to be in a situation where he did not know where the main thrust was going to be. So Lee, being numerically inferior, had to make a decision. Do I defend here or do I defend there? Can I afford to take troops from this point and move over there? Because this might happen that Grant attacks over here and breaks through. So the Battle of Peebles Farm that took place from roughly the 29th of September to October the 2nd of 1864 came right after the Battle of New Market Heights, Fort Harrison, and Chaffin's Bluff, which is the same battle with 2 or 3 different names. That took place on the north side. That took place on the 28th and 29th of September. And the reason Grant did that was that he didn't want Lee to know where the main thrust was going to be. Now, if you look at one of those, you can't really tell on the maps that I gave you, but if you had a map of Petersburg, and this whole area, you see that Grant has all of his troops on basically the circumference of a circle, on the arc of a circle. But Lee can move his troops on the chord, crosswise. He can go a shorter distance. Well, that's probably good because Lee had a lot less troops than Grant did. So Grant was going to use that to his advantage, though. He wanted to take Richmond. So he didn't really have a good foothold on the north side of the James River because most of his troops were down around Petersburg. So he decided on the 28th, 29th of September to send troops up around, I'm sure you know where Fort Harrison is out there east of Richmond, down on Route 5, to attack in that area up there and threaten Richmond. There weren't very many troops in Richmond. In fact, Richmond had to call up all of its home guard and everything to help protect the city, from this northern incursion. Well, Lee also sees troops moving down towards Peebles Farm, which is on the southwestern side of Petersburg. Which of these is going to be the main thrust? He takes almost 10,000 troops from down around Petersburg and sends them up to the Chaffin's Bluff area on the north side of the river by putting them across on pontoon bridges up to Bermuda 100. They're all 18th Corps troops. They fight up there. They lose Fort Harrison, but they keep the Union Army from advancing into the city. But Lee still isn't sure where the thrust is going to be. So he had to make a big decision here. What if I lose down on the south side of the river, or if Grant is successful and attack in Richmond? I'm going to have to transfer all of my troops from Petersburg up there just to protect Richmond. Well, what's going to happen with all of the supplies and everything that's in Petersburg? So what he did, he had his staff officers, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't already have this plan long before September, because everybody will admit Lee was a great general, and no good general is going to put himself in a position where he doesn't have a plan that if things go sour, that he can't pull his troops out. Dunkirk. Evidently the British and the French didn't have a plan for what happens if they get overrun by the Germans. So Lee's not going to be in a position like they were. So what he did, he had his staff. And people forget about armies having staffs that do the planning. And he certainly detailed somebody to come up with a plan to evacuate Petersburg if necessary. And they had everything on the day of the Battle of Peebles Farm, the days that battle took place. Had everything all packed up and ready to go in Petersburg, just in case he had to evacuate Petersburg to defend Richmond. Now, do you really think that he just, after he won down at Peebles Farm, more or less, because he foiled Grant. Grant's goal down there was to try to break Morton Plank Road, which was a supply line, and to make it all the way over there to the South Side Railroad, which is the only railroad coming into Petersburg now at this point, bringing supplies from the west. That was Grant's goal. Well, Lee foiled that. And so do you really think that he threw those plans away? No, he didn't. They filed them away in case they needed them, and they did on the 2nd and 3rd of April. And that's why Lee was able to get everything that he needed to sustain his army, get his army out, get his wagon trains, get his ambulances, had routes picked out for his troops to march on. All that was done in advance. It was not done between when the breakthrough took place in the early morning of April 2nd through that evening at 11 o'clock when Robert E. Lee had his entire army out of Petersburg and marching either through Chesterfield County along River Road, out to 360, US 360, and across Scoots Bridge, or out Namazine Road to rendezvous at Amelia Courthouse. He had already laid on and requested that supplies be sent to them to meet him at Amelia Courthouse. And then to meet his army when they got to Farmville.